Hello, fellow buddy fighters, and welcome to my deck profile on Blade Beasts slash Japanese Blades. Um, Trying to get around to all the different archetypes of Katana World, so we'll start with Blade Beasts. The buddy is White Dew Blade Beast Onimaru. It's a 4/1/1 size 0, and when it attacks, you choose a Japanese blade item in your drop, and you pay 1 life. If you do, equip the card by paying its equip cost, and then it self-destructs at the end of the turn. I have it as buddy, obviously, for several reasons. First off, it's a size 0, which means I can always play it. Second off, with it being buddy, you don't have to worry about not having that 1 life to use its ability, because you can call it buddy life and then swing, even if it 1 life, you buddy life to 2. You can swing, pay that 1 life back down to 1, and call an item probably maybe to end the game. And obviously, Katana World flag. So I try to have any any promo flag or secret flag be the flag, just so they're just different than just the usual generic Katana World flags. But anyways, back to the buddy. Obviously, just 4 of Onimaru. He just fits in any field shape, so no reason to run him. No reason to not run him at 4. And then with the new Crane Princess sword, it's nice to grab the. Wow, that's massively out of focus at the moment. Yeah, man. Anyways, you can always just grab another item to call to swing during the battle phase with Crane Princess equipped. Next is onto the size 1s. Is 2 Blade Beast of Exorcism, Juzu Maru Sunetsugu. He's a 3/2/1 size 1, and when he enters the field, if you have a Japanese blade on your field other than him, put the top card of your deck into your gauge, so he's nice for a little bit of gauge gain. And he's just another, Japanese blade to try to add towards the count. But if you're in a pinch and you have like 2 gauge and you need that 1 extra gauge to call like your impact monster, for an example, you can call him, gain the gauge, and then you're perfectly set up for the impact monster. So he can come through in a pinch sometimes. Next is 3 of the Searcher, Blade Beast of Ghost Slash, Tojigiri Yasutsuna. He's a 5/1/3, size 1. His call cost is pay 2 gauge, so I run 3 because his call cost is a little expensive. I don't want to drown in trying to see him so much. But when he enters the field, you put 1 Japanese blade monster or item from your deck into your hand and then shuffle your deck. So you can grab the impact monster with this if you want to try to finish the game. If you have a Japanese blade in your drop zone, he gets crit +1 and penetrate. So obviously, probably what you want to do is charge a Japanese blade item or monster, pay that as part of one of the 2 gauge call costs, and then boom, he's just instantly up to a 5/2/3 with penetrate. So really easy to get that requirement, and you can search for basically anything you need to try to get your advantage over your opponent. I run 1 Vagabond Munichika. He's a 6/2/1 size 2 dual world, dungeon world, and katana world. And when he enters the field, you can put an item from your drop zone into your hand, and he has move. If you're going to play him, or you're probably going to get him later on in the match, so only having 1 is not the worst idea in the world, because then you'll probably see this card later on in the game. But if you have like Crane Princess equipped, or you don't have it equipped but it's in the drop and you want to equip it with your other main weapon, you can just call him, grab that Crane Princess sword or any other sword, and just equip it. So super good card to try to keep your deck a little more consistent. Next, on to the size 2s. Well, you're already on size 2s, but on to the next size 2. Is 4 Blade Beast of Phantasm, Onimaru Kunitsuna. It's a 5/3/3 size 2. It's pay 1 gauge and put the top 2 cards of your deck into its soul. And at the end of the turn, if he's rested, destroy this card. And he has move and soul guard. So obviously, when he destroys himself, you just use soul guard to keep him on the field. That 3 crit is nice. And I do run Hiding Oni in this deck, so to be able to remove a soul, to gauge and draw 2 is always a nice thing. But he's kind of the way you tend to get your cards in your drop, because you put the top 2 into its soul, and then obviously choose Japanese blades that are different and put them into your drop zone to try to get that consistency of different Japanese blades. So he's a pretty core card in Japanese blades. Next is 4 Blade Beast of Blinder, Mikazuki Munichika. He's a 5/2/1 size 2. His call cost is pay 1 gauge and 1 life. If you have 2 or more different Japanese blades in your drop, he gets a crit. So it could be a 3 crit. At the end of the turn that he attacks, If you have 5 or more different Japanese blades in your drop, he gets double attack. So he could be a scary 5/3/1 double attack with penetrate, and he has move. So he can cover your center as well. I don't like him as buddy only because that 1 life. I just would hate to be at 1 life, draw into him, and then I can't buddy call. I can't call him in general because I'd have to pay the 1 life, and actually I can't pay the 1 life at 1 life. So I'd hate to be in that situation where I just couldn't call him. So that's why I don't have him as buddy. I used to have him as buddy previously, but when the size 0 came out, it was just a really easy choice just to choose him to be the buddy instead. Next on to the size 3s is Blade Beast of 16th Night, Crane Princess Ichimonji. She's a 7/1/4, which is slightly odd stats, but she's a size 3, and her call cost is put the top card of your deck into her soul and pay 2 gauge. Her act is you can discard a Japanese blade from your hand. If you do, put the top card of your deck into your gauge and draw a card. This ability can only be activated once per turn. So if let's say somehow you want to, I'm not sure, it may depend on the situation, but you could always have her on the field, use her ability. If you're really fishing, you really need to search for something, you could actually call over her with another one of her and use her ability again. But obviously it's not a named ability once per turn, probably because you're never going to have 2 of these on the field at any given time. And then if you have 3 or more different Japanese blades in your drop zone, this card gets crit +1 and move. So the plan with that is to have the 2 gauge for a call cost be 2 different Japanese blades, which can sort of be random, especially if it's the beginning of the game. And then obviously the card you discard would be the 3rd different Japanese blade to give it the crit +1 and move, and it has double attack and soul guard naturally. And she's another good example of a card that you can run Hiding Oni on, and to remove her soul, engage 1 and draw 2. So super solid card. She's really pretty too. I love her. Next is 2 of the impact monster, Mikazuke Mune Chika, Forbidden Art Blade Deity Descends! ! It's an 8/2/5 size 2 impact monster, and you can only call this card if you have 4 or more different Japanese blades in your drop. His call cost is pay 3 gauge and put a Japanese blade from your field into this card's soul. So it just says Japanese blade, so you could even throw your item into its soul. It doesn't say Japanese blade monster, so if you're low on monsters but you have the gauge, you can always do that. If there are 7 or more different Japanese blades in your drop, this card gets crit +1, and its attack can't be nullified if it's attacking alone. And it has a scary combination of move, penetrate, double attack, and soul guard on its own. So, really good finisher. Could potentially do up to 6 crit, can't be nullified. Really nice against like Chaos to try to push for the end. And you can always grab it with Dojigiri Yasutsuna. So that's why I only run 2 of it. Obviously, that'd be 5 gauge total, so you better have some clear Serenities or something ready to use if you do that combo, but it is there and viable. So really good finisher. Next is onto the items. 1, Elite Sword Mikazuke Mune Chika. It's a 5/2. At the end of the turn, you destroy this card, and it has Penetrate. So I just have it as a 1-of to try to get that different Japanese blades in the deck, and it's a good card to call back with Murasame Maru. And also, just while we're on the topic of Japanese blades, the water/sword Murasame has been actually errata to be a Japanese blade. So if you do want to, you could actually run Murasame Maru's item in this deck, and it would be completely viable. It's on the official Bushi website, so it's totally legit. Yeah, I just run this as a 1-of again to try to get some consistencies of different Japanese blades. Next 1-of is 1 Great Fiend Sword, Kuro Muramasa. I'm sort of excited to see what the Japanese blade monster of this card would be, because I feel like it'd be a scary size 3. But it's a 6/4. That 4 is scary. Its equip cost is pay 1 gauge, and when it attacks, you take 1 damage. I used to, back when Japanese blades first came out and I ran this, I would run an inverse count on, so that 1 damage would be reflected back to my opponent, but that was so inconsistent, but it was just funny to try to do like 1 time, just to say you've done it. But this is sort of a scary card to bring back with Murasame Maru, because sometimes your opponent won't even expect it, and it'll be in the drop. You just swing Murasame Maru for that 1, pay 1 life, equip it for a gauge, swing, yeah, you take a damage, but 4 crits pretty damn scary, so, yeah. I think pretty much a lot of Japanese blade decks that I've seen run that as a 1-of, and it's a pretty scary 1-of. Next is 5 Heavenly Swords, Onimaru. It's a 6/3. Pay 1 gauge, and when you equip it, you put the top 2 cards of your deck into its soul, and at the end of the turn, if this card is rested, you put a card from its soul into the drop, and if you can't, then you destroy this card. So you basically have 3 turns to swing with this card. Again, it's another viable card to use with Hiding Oni, because Hiding Oni is just remove a soul from a card on the field, not specifically an Oni Assassin. So obviously this is totally viable. Also keep in mind it does not have Soul Guard. So if the item does get destroyed, it's completely destroyed. Its secondary effect doesn't kick off to try to keep it alive. It is just dead. So I run 3. You may be able to run 4 if it's kind of like the main sword that Japanese blades want to use to try to get the cards in drop, the different Japanese blades in drop. So pretty standard. Next is the new pretty Japanese blade based off of the Crane Princess monster, Exquisite Sword Crane Princess. It's a 7/1. You can only equip it if you have a Blade Beast on your field, which, I mean, that's kind of pretty obvious and easy to do. Its equip cost is pay 1 gauge, and if you have this item equipped, you can actually equip another Japanese blade other than itself. So you can equip Onimaru, you can equip Kuro Muramasa, you can equip Mikazuki Munichika with this. Excuse me. And so it's Japanese blades have become a dual wield deck. It's kind of like with Dragon Knight. So kind of a really good card, and it's a very pretty card too. So I love the the feathers on the card. It's very nice touch. Next is under spells. We go into 3 Hiding Onis. Really good draw and gauge gain card for Japanese blades. Its cast cost is put a soul from a card on your field into the drop, and then you gain a gauge and draw 2. So really solid. Good amount of cards in the deck that have soul, so it shouldn't be too hard to activate that. And if you can get Hiding Oni to go off twice, then you are doing pretty solid. Next is Summer Recollection 2017, Zanya or Watermelon Splitting. And I love this card's artwork. It's freaking hilarious. But it's a Snake Gaze clone, and you can only have up to 4 of this and or Snake Gazes combined into your deck, because they're just the exact same card. Its cast cost is pay 1 life, and its counter is rest a monster on your opponent's field. So get going and split those watermelons or Zanya's heads, whichever one you prefer. Next is for sword skill Zante Satetsu. It's counter, choose a Japanese blade on your field, and during this turn, the next time it would be destroyed, it remains on the field. Then if that card is a monster, you can give a counterattack. And that counterattack is for the rest of the turn. So if you have some monster with Soul Guard, like Onimaru or Ichimonji on the field, you can actually play this on the first swing, and then, I mean, your opponent now knows, obviously, has counterattack, so if it tries to swing at it again with the Soul Guard, but, you know, it does help. At least it kind of tries to accumulate advantage by doing counterattack multiple times. The only downside is if your opponent, obviously, monsters can't be destroyed by card effects like bots or prism dragons. Obviously, that kind of sucks, but, I mean, you know, what do you expect? But it is a Japanese blade, so you do want it to try to get that different number of Japanese blades in the drop. It's just kind of a core deck for Japanese blades, no matter what the meta is. So, I mean, that's why you run Snake Gaze as a 4 of, as the other, like, Nullify / Rest / Shield card. So, next is 3 Demon Way Akeshigure. Its cast cost is pay 1 gauge, and you put the top 2 cards of your deck into your drop zone and draw a card. Then, if you have 10 or more cards in your drop, you draw another card. And you can only cast this once per turn. So, obviously, the 10 or more is based on the 1 gauge to play it, and then the 2 that are milled from this. So, kind of, basically, in order to draw 2, you gotta have 7 or more in the drop. So, with the way Japanese blades work, though, that shouldn't be too terribly hard. But it is just another good draw spell that, you know, because Japanese blades don't have their own natural draw spell. So, and it helps just set the drop zone up by milling those 2 and the 1 gauge for Akeshigure. And then last but not least, definitely not least, is 4 Clear Serenities. It's a counter, put the top 3 cards of your deck into your gauge. You may only cast Clear Serenity once per turn. Japanese blades tend to eat a lot of gauge, so this is a good card to try to keep the gauge up. And plus, if you have the impact monster and no gauge, at the end of your battle, your opponent will think, okay, they're done. You know, maybe your opponent's wasted all the shields they have because they don't expect an impact or an impact monster because you have no gauge. And then you just be like, final phase, gain 3. And they're like, oh shit. So, and then you can, you know, call the impact monster and they may not expect it. So probably not first game. If you do best 2 out of 3, they may expect that, but you know, it depends. And then, like I mentioned in my other ninja deck, even though it's once per turn, you can just counter play like during the end of your opponent's turn, or if you know your opponent has like a shield, like Garble, or not a shield, a spell nullify, like Garble Anchor, in the soul of a monster on the field, and you don't want them to nullify this, play this and counter to something that they play during their turn, whether it's a spell or a monster or whatever. You can then counter and play this, and then they don't have the counter timing to nullify this. So that's why this card is just really good. So you could sort of indirectly add another bullet and say this card effect can't be nullified if you play it right. But I mean, that doesn't happen too often, but it is just something to keep in mind if the occasion does come up. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the deck profile for Japanese Blades. If you have any questions or comments about other cards I didn't run, or any other thoughts and opinions, just leave them in the comments, and I may very well get to them if I have the chance. So have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.